Welcome one and welcome all. This is HaloPod, a podcast powered by Halo, a certified minority-owned search firm. We provide the white glove service in connecting employers with potential employees to create the perfect match opportunities. I'm your host and insight extraordinaire, Angelo, and on the pod today, we have Ruben Rosario to discuss his journey and role in cybersecurity. Ruben's been at Accenture for a year and some change, and it's time we dive in and give him some time to shine. I'm here with our guest, Ruben Rosario. Ruben is a security consulting analyst at Accenture. Accenture is a global professional service company providing services and solution and strategy, consulting, digital, technology, and operations. First, Ruben, before we get too deep into the weeds here, how's all in your world? How's things going for you on your end?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Angelo, for having me. It's really great to be here. Yeah, man, things have been really great. Just ended the week, attended all the meetings and did all the work that I needed to do. So, yeah, we're all good in this lovely April.
Great, Ruben. So, if you can, dive as deep as you would like and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got interested in cybersecurity.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always, been relatively interested in technology to an extent. I had my undergrad in audio recording. So, for visual media, so for like film, commercials, television, things like that. So I love movies, huge movie nerd. But just in terms of technology, like technology's always been sort of tangential in my realm, in my wheelhouse. And so, for quite a bit of time, from 2014, I was working at a private members club called Soho House Chicago. And I applied to just be like their AV manager. So they had, a few event spaces, one for like private events, one for events that members could utilize, anything from a small discussion to a five-piece band to, full blown, movie theater. And so, I applied to just work there just to be their AV dude. And, it like in the midst of hiring, they're like, oh yeah, computers too, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of. And they're like, okay, well, you're gonna be like the IT person as well. And I was like, wait, what? And so
Offered up your services.
yeah, so I was working there for quite a bit of time. It certainly wasn't, a solo act. We did have a service provider that, Soho House is a UK based company, and so their service provider, their IT, service provider, was also based out of the UK. So a lot of things were done by them. Shout out to Micronet and all the homies out there across the pond. But yeah, so they would help out, and a lot of times I would just monitor things on my end. If they noticed that something was wrong, I would have to do a couple things here and there, log into a few servers, reboot a couple things. I remember one instance where the IP config for some reason didn't take, and so I had to serial in and reset the IP config locally, so because they couldn't do it remotely. So it's just it kind of got tacked on, and then COVID happened. And so, COVID happened, and it was like the entire hospitality sector just got upended. And it's like, what are we going to do? And so, my wife was just like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what do you like? Maybe you should use this time to like go into something else. And, I don't know if it was like a rise of cyber threats or a rise of things just sort of happening when like Zoom bombing was happening in the midst of the pandemic early on. So it was like there was lots of awareness there. And so decided to go back to school. My wife was just like, you should try to do as much research as you can. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who was in the industry, and I sort of knew, that, he was. And I had, over time had picked his brain little by little, but, never fully got into it. And so, I just called him up and I was like, hey man, like, I'm thinking about just moving into your sector. Like, what do you like? Can you give me pointers? And he was just like, man, I'm so glad you're asking me this. And so, his advice was, he's like, you could do a boot camp. He's like, I would advise, if you have the means to do it, like do a high-end boot camp, like do Northwestern's cyber boot camp. It's 6 months, but you have the prestige of the Northwestern name, and they're going to teach you some really good stuff, and he was like, you might learn, some of the same things, but right, it's like at the same time, you're paying for a big name, right? Like to just add on your CV. And so I just went ahead and did that. And man, I went, got through the program, learned a whole, talking about drinking from the fire hose. We learned a whole bunch of stuff. And then I graduated in, June of 2021. And then in December of 2021, Accenture reached out to me via LinkedIn. I thought it was a spam. I thought it was spam. I thought it was like not real. I'm like, oh, this is, some phishing. It's Christmas time, like they're going ahead and doing that. And so basically, yeah, man, like they started the interview process, started in March of 2022, and here I am, just like, a few weeks, past a year of working as a cybersecurity analyst.
First of all, how awesome is it to hear of the support system, right? Like between your wife and then also, your friend that was already kind of, well, not kind of, but in the sector and was
Yeah.
so open. Like it seems like, there's absolutely no gatekeeping, which is really awesome to hear.
I mean, like I've definitely, been blessed in the sense that I've always had a solid support system. Like whether that be sort of like through family and friends, but also too, moving into the sector. And I mean, even like everyone in the boot camp, like there's people, we're on a text thread and we're all talking to one another. One guy that I haven't spoken to like since the boot camp, he hit me up on LinkedIn and he was like, hey, I'm reaching out to everybody, like my buddy reached out for an analyst position, like, are you looking? And I'm like, I'm not, but I know these people are from our class. And so, there's been that level of support. And so it's just been really awesome to just have that.
It's it's good community.
Oh
That's
yeah.
yeah, that's super. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
So so how awesome is it? Accenture reaches out to you, but
Yeah.
what kind of drew you in and finalized your decision that hey, this is the company that is the right step for me at this time.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I was looking around, for a handful of months. I had gotten, a few cloud certifications. And so, I was like trying to see, and some places were like, we love that you have this IT experience, but you don't have any full blown experience. You have like some certs, but not all this other stuff. And so, it's like it's always like a chicken and egg situation where and I don't necessarily I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. I think a lot of times, in many instances, for any job, really, not so much just cyber, but I think any job, you know, the HR, the HR process just kind of gets a little lost in trying to find the right candidates, and they're trying to find perfect candidates. And while I'm not saying that there aren't people that are extremely qualified, but there are times where I'm sure you had seen this in the field where it's like they're asking for an entry level position, but the certifications that they're asking for are certifications that can only be acquired if you've been in the industry for like 5 years. Like a CISSP or something along those lines. And it's just like, well, I don't have that. There's no way I could get it. And so, it was like I had friends that were looking out. I was going through a whole bunch of stuff, but I would say there's probably two factors. One, I was aware of Accenture, I had friends that had worked there prior
That's good.
in not only in the cyber portion of it, but also in just regular consulting, financial consulting and other stuff.
Hmm.
And so that was one aspect. And then the other was a really good childhood friend of mine, Eric. Um, he was going through their associate program. And sort of with their associate program, what they do is they take, people from non-traditional backgrounds and they basically like, you know, pivot you into a role into Accenture. And so, he had found his way into doing lots of, pen testing activities, on his own, as well as being part of Chicago community colleges. He's a huge advocate for like the National Cyber League, the NCL, and so he was just like we hadn't like fully spoken in a while. Like I was always so busy at Soho House, and then somehow I had looked on his LinkedIn and he was at Accenture, and they had just reached out to me, and I was just like, "Hey, you work here?" And so it was like I asked him about his experience. I had asked around the process. The hiring process went very well. And so it just seemed like a good fit. It just seemed like a really good fit for me moving into this industry and sort of what they were offering as, someone that was just sort of hitting the ground running. It was a really solid fit.
Yeah, and how awesome is it that they're actively looking to give people opportunities too? That's
Yeah.
a that's a pretty big plus. So with kind of piggybacking off of that, what's kind of like a healthy work environment or like work culture to you? And are you do you feel like you're getting all of that from Accenture?
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. Um, I mean, I think it's extremely important, extremely important to have a healthy work culture. Me working in hospitality, hospitality is notorious for having, toxic work cultures.
Right.
Whether you working in a kitchen or working in a hotel or just, and that's not to say that I didn't have a good work culture. Like I had people that I could rely on. I had people that like looked out for me. Like I was very much taken care of, but I was overworked, especially in the midst of the pandemic. Um, and so it was one of those things where you had to overwork yourself to be acknowledged in many instances, not all the time, but many times. And it's crazy because, I've left that behind.
Yeah.
And so, now I'm like, it's sometimes still in that mode and people are like, yo, man, slow down.
Right.
Like, yo, what do you
You're
like? What,
hustling. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, that was just sort of, ingrained in me being there for so long, and being born and raised in Chicago, like blue collar person, come from a blue collar family, so it's just like, okay, like roll your sleeves up and just get to work, and
Yeah,
so
we learn how to adapt, right? In any
yeah.
situation, whether it be the weather or work, we learn how to
Yeah,
adapt.
yeah, no. And so, I think Accenture has been absolutely incredible. In terms of like a fostering environment, I think that um they've always been very, very good about giving you good, solid feedback, and constructive criticism. It's like, hey, here's some things you did very well. Here's some things that you could work on, just to be 100%. And so, it's very good because, um, it just always feels like I'm bringing something to the table. And it's wild. Like I remember on my current client, I had to, like, we were on a global project. And so we were working with people from all regions. And there was one point where my boss was like, hey, we have to touch base with this person, that's in greater Asia. So, we're going to have to get on a call at like 6 p.m., 6 a.m. our time. Like I know it's an early call, like my apologies. And so I remember like, got on that call and it was super early. And we were talking with the manager, who was based out of that way, and he's up there. He's several levels above me, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just like a lowly analyst, and he was like, no, 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 like don't just say that. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no, like as an analyst, you're doing a lot of work. You're overseeing a lot of stuff. Like, yeah, as a manager, like someone above you might be delegating work, but you're doing the work. So don't ever sell yourself short in terms of what you're doing. And it was just wild to me because, for years, like I've seen like, you know, friends that I've worked with or other people that, like that I know that have had upper management just be so terrible to them or just have these sort of belittling expectations of them. So for him to just say that, the very first time that we've, had a sort of like one-on-one dialogue discussion, I was just like, this is incredible. And so, it was just really, really nice. And it just, helped pave the way to just continuing doing solid work because I just didn't want to let those people down.
Yeah, yeah, right. I can definitely relate to that. I share the same feelings with Halo Consulting here.
Yeah.
Totally understand where, you just want to give your all for the team because your team's giving
Yeah.
it all for you, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
building you up even when you don't even know if you can properly swim or not. But
Yeah.
they're there helping you. So yeah, I totally can appreciate that. And then it's awesome to hear that they have the program that you mentioned earlier where they're focused on inclusion. How
Mhm.
important to you, just in your opinion, is diversity and inclusion in the cybersecurity industry? And what's like in just like one or two steps, if you want to name more, you can, but just a few steps on maybe what you feel like companies can do to promote it more. Even though it sounds like Accenture they're doing amazing at it. So maybe suggestions for other companies to kind of take out of the playbook of Accenture without giving too much of the golden meal.
Yeah, I think diversity and inclusion is incredibly important. And I think, to me, one of the great things that it adds is just perspective. Um, I think sometimes in whatever situation that you're in, it's always good to get, another pair of eyes on something, no matter what. And I think having, diversity and inclusion at the forefront, you're gonna get perspective on a lot of things that most people just sort of wouldn't have. And so, whether that's the work, whether that's the approach, whether that's the talent, I just think that, there's just plenty of opportunity um for just employers to gain perspective, not only of, their mode and their output, but just also too, and I think a lot in many instances, it can be seen as opportunistic, right? Like it's a fad, and so it's like, oh, look at what we're doing. But there's a lot of companies that are actually making it a point to maintain a level of diversity and inclusion. And so, whether that's, having more women, at the table, whether that's having, black or brown people, whether that's having trans people, like any of those things that are happening, underrepresented people have a perspective that just isn't normally, isn't the norm. And so, I think including them certainly just sort of adds to that. And I think, um, it just gives everyone an opportunity. I feel like I've been able to get as far as I have because, yeah, I did a lot of hard work. I'm not selling my work, short, but also like I've had opportunities that have presented themselves that other people have helped, pave the way. And so, I just think it's incredibly important. So,
Yeah, and look, when those opportunities are presented, look what you're able to do with it. And it's
Yeah,
definitely, it should be, as you mentioned, just available for more. So,
yeah.
yeah, totally agree with you on that stuff. Now, as a security consulting analyst,
Mhm.
if we can just kind of break it down, what are like the responsibilities in your role?
So I mean, like, given that I work in consulting, it really depends on what the client at that time needs, you know. And so, at one point I was working in more data discovery and data loss prevention, early in my Accenture career. Right now I'm doing more, security assessments and just looking at security posture and things as such. And so it's kind of like a mixed bag. It really is just sort of whatever. And I think too, I'm young in my career where it's like I'm very malleable, right? Like I'm not necessarily a SME at anything. I'm trying to make sure that I have a few cloud certifications. I have Azure certifications and I have Azure certifications, and I'm trying to, maintain some level of cloud security, focus. But I'm also open to many of things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think really it's just a matter of, whatever work you're doing, just do good work. And if you thoroughly know it, or if you know a little bit, start learning, more about whatever the task is at hand, right? So it's like, if you need to, if you're on a pen testing engagement, what are your tools? What are you using? Are you, like just things like that. Like whatever it is that you're doing, just make sure that you're utilizing the most. So, but on a day-to-day basis, it just depends really. Cause it's like for me, given that I'm on a global client at the moment, half my day is meetings and then half my day is work. Because, the early morning, everyone's just trying to get, the agenda or get on the same page. And then for that latter half of the day, I'm making sure that my assessments are done, or if there's like things that come through that, it's like, okay, let's connect these dots and make sure everything's all good. So,
Yeah. And then kind of to piggyback on like some of the tools, how do you stay up to date with like latest trends and technology tools in cybersecurity?
I mean, just have a solid feed. Like I have a bunch of websites. Like Krebs on security, like certainly stands out. By Brian Krebs, but like have those like 9 or 10 websites that you go to. Like when I log in, boom, like those websites refresh every morning, and it's like, all right, like what's the news for the day? What's important for the day? Because every day something happens. And so, like anything from like blogs to podcasts, there's a whole slew of stuff that's just out there, to just sort of gain knowledge. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole host of stuff. But yeah, I mean, and it's important really because security is always evolving and there's always things kind of happening, and you have to stay up to date. That's the cool thing about it. It's like it's almost baked in to never be boring because there's always going to be something to do. So that's like so far, I'm like, this is awesome because there's just
Right.
always something happening.
Because, yeah, it's always a change to it.
Yeah.
What are some of the positive developments or innovations that you've seen in the cybersecurity industry in like your time kind of being in the sector so far?
I mean, I would say, the biggest thing that I've seen is just, people automating more with just AI, and like I think I know a lot of people are sort of scared, about AI and the use of it. And obviously there's certainly concerns, there should always be, ethically concerns and, things as such. But I think that that's the biggest thing. I think another one is just legislation, like cyber legislation. Like I think given COVID and like people seeing, what's been happening, I think that a lot more, both like local and federal, government agencies are paying attention, and they're just like, yeah, we need to make sure that we facilitate this industry accordingly. So I mean, I would say that those are probably the two biggest things. I'm sure that there's going to be lots of changes, lots of changes. But yeah, I would say those two things are just something that come to mind.
To kind of piggyback off of the AI side of things, what role do you see AI and machine learning kind of playing in the future of
I
cybersecurity?
mean, so again, like, some people, I mean, especially programmers are, worried that like they're going to get their jobs cut. I mean, we've seen copywriters, freaking out, and, some people, getting laid off because some leaders have just been like, oh yeah, let's just use this, chat GPT to just figure everything out for us. And I think
Hmm.
for me, when it comes to AI and ML, like machine learning, I think those things are just going to be utilized as tools. They need to be utilized as tools. They need to be able to get, the sort of like monotonous things done. And so the things that kind of like bog down someone on a day-to-day basis, it's like if you can automate that and just sort of let that run on the side to give someone the flexibility and the means to be able to be a little bit more creative with their role, or to get to things that, they normally wouldn't get to. Or like think about it, right? Like if you can have a machine do a bunch of stuff that, you would do, and then you can get a bunch of other extra things done. It's like that's just productivity like through the roof. And so I think it needs to just be more, along those lines. But also too, but it's like we have to be careful. I know that there are, it's a fine line. I think that, ethics committees are important. I think it was a really big deal when Google, had done a bunch of stuff leading up to their release of Bard, and they bungled it, and their internal there was an internal memo. I saw a report on The Verge, saying that internally people were just like, this is not ready. Like AI scientists that work for them are like, this is not ready. Like if we just, you should not roll this out. This is ridiculous if you do that. And they didn't, and Google as a company, as a for-profit company, just decided not to listen to that. So I think in some instances, I think some people are certainly going to, um, you know, lead in with the wrong foot and just sort of come at it incorrectly. But I think companies that really implement AI in a very ethical manner and in the means of being like, we need to utilize this as a tool to just help us get work done more efficiently, work for us, things along those lines are just, super important.
Well, just to kind of revert back a little bit into your role at Accenture here, what are some maybe common misconceptions about cybersecurity that maybe you've encountered in your time so far, and how do you kind of address them with folk if you ever need to?
Interesting thing is that like the conception is that like everyone's a computer nerd, or like everyone's a hacker, and that's not the case. Um,
That's funny. I like
yeah,
that
like
because it's not the
it's
case.
not
It's
it's not
totally
the
not.
case. Like the industry is wide and vast, and so there was a woman that I met the other day on a call, and you know she's literally like strictly focused on social engineering. So like literally the human component and how to exploit it. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I just like just thinking that that's someone's job, being able to like solely explore that portion of it. And, I mean, like she would do everything from like trying to figure out if there were like insider threats, at a company, or figuring out like if there would be a potential like spear phishing campaign or things as such, like what would someone look for? And so, it's like there's just all these different aspects to it. But yeah, like not everyone's a hacker, not everyone's in front of their screens all day. There's like obviously, I'm in front of my screen a lot. Um, but at the same time, there's 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 lots of different aspects. It's not just one thing. And that's what's cool about it. Because I was just like, oh, I just thought it was this. And it's like, no, it's not that at all.
Right. That's awesome. And what would you like to see kind of realistically be addressed in the world of security engineers? Like, if you could just snap your fingers, make a change for the better, what would that be?
I mean, I think in a lot of instances, every day that happens, like cybersecurity gets thought of like a little bit more and more. But, for a long time, Um, security is just sometimes an afterthought, right? It's like we just need to get this, you know, we just need to get this application over the hump and then we'll fix it later. We need to migrate this piece of hardware and then we'll secure it later. It's like in many instances, security is just sometimes an afterthought. It's not always, but for some companies, it just is. And so I think, it, you know, it's nice to hear that, DevSecOps is like becoming focused on security, right? And it's not just like DevOps. It's like, no, like secure code is being implemented. And it's like that practice is being implemented. And so I think, I would just like to see for that, to get further and further up the ladder. You have C-suite people that like don't really think about it. But I mean, again, and maybe it's different too because my perspective is like I'm working in security and I'm always thinking about it. So, it's like my lens is always like it's always important. Not just because of what I do, but just also to like the implication, right? You know.
But no, I mean, you got a total point though, because I mean, without security, I mean, I don't even, we can't even get into the dangers of that, So it's like,
Yeah.
it should be, top of the forethought, like 100%. I totally agree with you
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, that would probably be something, that would be nice. I mean, again, I know that there are like some business leaders and some people really focusing on that. But yeah, it would be nice if just a lot of people just thought about even like the average person, like fix your, password 123. Change that. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that.
Yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
people
right.
still do that, and it's just like, well, it's so easy, and it's just like, no, no, you have to think about security. Like it may be your phone that you're just logging into, but to your point, right? It's like people use their phones every day. They have tons of stuff on their phones, right? It's just like if everyone could just focus on that, that would be great.
That's hilarious. I like that. So what's kind of keeping you engaged, and what's got you so certain that you're going to be kind of in this sector for the next at least foreseeable future here?
I mean, again, man, there's so much to learn. There's so much to do. I mean, I think you know my my engagement, was already sort of peaked pre going to the boot camp and pre learning about a bunch of stuff. But everything that we learned there, and then just everything that I've seen, um, I'm just engaged. It's like everything from seeing, the last pass hack happening, late last fall. and seeing the fallout from that. And it's just like, oh man, like that's crazy, you know, um, to seeing, data breaches that everyday companies,
Yeah, just seeing
just seeing
examples.
examples
Yeah,
of that,
seeing
just
examples of what can
that
go
just
wrong.
affect everybody. I think just seeing those things and just having that perspective now, um, it's just tenfold. And I think also too, like, um, just the level of opportunity. I think like I'm starting from like the ground, right? Like I have actively pivoted into my third career, if you will. So post college, like I had said, earlier, I studied audio, so I was doing location audio and I worked on, indie films and commercials for a long time, like doing dialogue recording. And then from there, went into hospitality, AV/IT, and then now from there, I've gone into cybersecurity. But like going into cybersecurity, it's like I'm there's just there's so much to do, and yet it's like I'm like, man, there's tons of opportunity here, tons of things to learn, tons of stuff to do. And it's like, and this is like only the beginning of my journey. And I've already feel like so much has happened. And it's just it's wild to me. It's just wild to me. So and also too, I think, to that same point, like community, like yeah, I've always had like a good amount of people, but man, going into the cybersecurity sector and not only meeting other people that are in the industry, but also too like people that I work with on the day-to-day level, like they've just been so like warm and welcoming and inviting. And it's like anytime I have a question, like there's no stupid question, right? Like it's like if you just want to know about something or if you just want to ask a question, it's like no, it's not dumb. Like what do you want to know about?
Yeah,
Like boom, ask. And then
yeah.
people will just show up. And so that's I think it's really those things. It's the fact that there's so much like opportunity and room for growth and as well as people facilitating growth.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's and I really appreciate that because sometimes people got to hear it from others and they can kind of have that light kind of shine and they can kind of see where they're also getting this support from, but maybe they're just not appreciative of it, or even knowing that if they just kind of knocked on one door just to kind of see if the what the opportunity would be like, and then boom, they would notice how open the community
Yeah.
is, or how willing that colleague or friend would be to kind of drag you through and be like, yeah, welcome to my world, like let's get you immersed in this.
Yeah.
Like that's yeah, it's pretty cool that that's out there for people. And I hope that encourages people to continue to dive in, no matter what.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like I've gone back to like do, sort of talks with like current boot camp students, I'll go back as like alum, to speak to them, and I'll just hear about their experiences. And I did a volunteer effort through Accenture speaking to like very young college kids that are getting into this industry, and they're like what's going on, like what how do things look like. And it's just like it's just been great. Yeah, like I just tell them too, I'm like, look, I did it. I did it and I got here, I put in the work, and just do what you can. You're gonna get whatever you give it, right? And it's like, yeah, you're gonna have some hard days, especially if you're learning a bunch of this stuff from the ground up. I mean, I was again like I was in IT, I had my hands in a bunch of this stuff, but then there were points in the boot camp where I was like, damn, I can't do this, you know, because it was accelerated, it was tough. And there was a point where I'm like, man, if I'm feeling this way, how does so and so feel? Like they're not even in IT. Like they barely know how to use a computer. But like by the end of it, it's like I would see these people, running bash scripts, in Linux. And it's just like, if you would have told them 6 months ago that they would be doing that, they would have been like, you're crazy. So it's like I've just having seen that firsthand, having seen those things just firsthand, it's like I know it's not impossible.
Right.
So
they just shouldn't shouldn't put limits on
yeah,
themselves,
no,
basically.
for sure. And I mean, I know things seem a little grim right now. I mean, but it's like it's also the economy. Like that's just not the industry as a whole. Like that's the economy. Like it's affecting everything. It's not just this industry. And so, a lot of people are worried, like, oh, I'm not going to get a job or I'm not going to do this. It's like, yeah, like everyone's just tightening the belt, but like, don't worry, things are going to go back to normal and things are, going to be open again for those opportunities for people to be able to take.
Yeah, well, cheers to that. And
Yeah.
as we wind down, Ruben, I kind of just want to ask just a few fun things, like what do you kind of do to recharge? What's like a hobby outside of work that you find peace in? You totally disconnect. You're not in front of a screen. What do you like to do? Maybe something with you and your wife. Maybe it's something solo. What do you kind of do to disconnect?
I mean, I would say, I definitely love to cook. I definitely love to cook. My Instagram's full of like tons of, foodie things, for sure. Love to cook, love to eat.
What's that Instagram? Let's give that Instagram a shout out.
Yeah, yeah. My handle's at Rosario. So you'll see a bunch of like, anime figures and food things and travel things. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm a pretty, like basic nerd. I love anime. I love reading comic books. I love to cook. I love like to just sit down and read. So there's a bunch of stuff. Again, I mean, I love movies. I love watching movies, studying movies, doing a bunch of that stuff. But
what are you watching? What are you watching today? Let me cut you off. What are you watching?
What am I watching today? We were probably gonna see this movie called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. So it's like this like sort of like thriller of like these students that literally try to blow up a pipeline. But I've heard it's really good. It's really gripping. I saw the new Evil Dead on Sunday early.
Oh, how was that? I'm a big
Evil Dead Rise. It's great. It's great. It's an Evil Dead movie. It's a little goofier than the normal Evil Dead movies.
No way. Really?
Yeah. It's more like Evil Dead 2. It's a little slapstick. It's a little. Yeah. So how Evil Dead 2 is like a remake of one, but a little like funnier. So yeah, I would say Evil Dead Rise has like this. It's still very gory and it's still very violent and like visceral. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. That was a whole lot.
That's another thing you and I got in common. I'm a big movie fan. The kid and I, we just checked out Mario, and
nice. I haven't seen that yet, but I want to. Is it good?
I'm not going to spoil a thing for you. It's great. I went in with a very tough expectation list, and I was taken aback by how good it was. So I really appreciate this time, Ruben. I feel like we got to learn a lot about you. We'll definitely be circling around and kind of catching up in maybe like half a year to a year from now and see kind of where your journey's taking you from here, okay?
All right, awesome. Sounds good. I look forward to it. Take care.
Great conversation and spotlight placed on cybersecurity and Ruben's personal experience. We learned a lot, and I appreciate our guest. Great convo to add to the HaloPod journey, if I say so myself. It was great being able to get Ruben's thoughts and experiences. Make sure to check out Accenture, and make sure you follow Halo at Halo Consulting via social medias and YouTube. Don't forget to visit haloconsulting.com for all your recruitment consulting needs.